This episode of Soldier Knows Best is brought to you by Gamefly.
Hey, what's up, guys? Soldier Knows Best here. About a week ago, Apple released Final Cut Pro 10 in the Mac App Store, and ever since then, there's been a rebellion against Apple and this new version of Final Cut, which is built from the ground up. There's been people who just absolutely love it, and then there's been a lot of people who just really hate it. And in this video, I'm just gonna tell you some of the reasons why that is, and also give you my personal opinion about whether this new version of Final Cut would be a good download for you. Now, the first thing that you hear people talking about is just the way it looks. Some people are calling this iMovie Pro because it looks almost exactly like the current version of iMovie. But I personally think that's a good thing because I think that's going to be good for a lot of people who are going to be upgrading from iMovie or just want to use a little bit more advanced application for video editing. I think it's going to be very easy for them to jump into it. You don't really need you're not going to really need a manual from the start to really go ahead and start dibbling and dabbling into things in this new version of Final Cut. But as far as the people who've been prosumers and using Final Cut Pro for a while, a lot of people don't really like the new format of it. They don't like the magnetic timeline, and also they don't like the format because it's not as customizable as it was in the past there, as far as organizing your workspace the way you want it and to be able to have your workflow going exactly like you have it for each individual project or the same projects. Now, some of the reasons here, I'm right now what I'm about to go over, just some of the reasons that people don't like this new version of Final Cut Pro just because some of these features are missing out of it. And from one thing, you have people talking about there's limited export settings where you're probably going to need to download Compressor, which is another application that Apple makes to be able to compress files so that you don't have these huge, large files, especially if you're trying to upload them to YouTube or different websites. There's no XML support. There's no native support for RED cameras and their raw files. There's no multicam support. And also, probably the biggest thing, which just makes me scratch my head every time I think about it, is that you can't import previous projects from different from earlier versions of Final Cut into this latest version of Final Cut Pro 10, which I just don't understand at all. So, so a lot of people are says, "Hey, why can't I just drag this over, import this, and start using some of the cool new features in Final Cut Pro 10?" Now, that's one thing, and this is one thing I just hate when companies do this. It's a little side note here. When companies release software or new updates to software and they take out some of these features which have been in there for years, I don't get why to do that. Does it slow it down or bog it down? I highly doubt it. But anyway, Apple has came out and said, well, some of the developers, the lead developers on the Final Cut Pro, have came out and answered some of these questions and said that some of those features that I have named off and listed off there are going to be coming in a future update for Final Cut in the future, and some of them are probably they didn't really go into whether they're going to actually bring them back or not. So you're kind of going to be stuck out there if you're going to be missing some of these features. And also, let me say this: that I'm not a heavy Final Cut Pro user at all. I mean, I've used Final Cut Express, I've used iMovie, ScreenFlow, and other applications like that over the past few years for my videos. And the reason I'm saying this is because I did a quick little Twitter poll asking my followers what they think about the latest version of Final Cut and also how long they've been using Final Cut over the years. And it's pretty clear that if you've been using, again, this is just from my poll, using Final Cut for probably 3 or plus years, you're probably not going to like this new version. Now, if you haven't been using it for that long, or you've been using something similar again to iMovie or something a little bit more inferior to Final Cut Pro, you're probably going to like it. Again, for the main reason that just by looking at it and just the organization of it, you're going to be a little bit more easier to get into. It's going to be a little bit more easier to get into because if you even touched iMovie in the past, you're probably going to know how to do a lot of things in Final Cut Pro 10 normally than if you again started using Final Cut Pro 7 or one of these earlier versions, which really looks very complicated when you first look at it at first glance. And it's pretty clear to see that Apple's going for the consumers, and this is a really good business move for them. I mean, just look, it's the #1 paid application in the App Store at $300. So you can just imagine the amount of money that they're making. And I personally don't think that they're leaving out the professionals with Final Cut because they're missing, those features that I ran off a little bit earlier. But I think that Apple is majority of their focus is making this an application that anybody can be able to pick up and use for the most part and be able to really make some really good professional content and really have a lot of power at their hands. All right, so this brings me to my overall conclusion about whether you should download this latest version of Final Cut or not. And I would personally say that unless you just absolutely need it, which I don't think a lot of people out there need this, because it's not really a lot of slam dunk features in this new version of Final Cut. It's just going to be like, hey, I can make a better movie than you now because I have this software, because I have the latest version of Final Cut. You have Final Cut Pro 7 or before. So I would probably say you probably can wait around a month to see what Apple does to it as far as what updates they apply to it and things like that. And to see people's opinions after using it for more than a week. I think a lot of people really slammed it, which I'm not saying they're wrong, but I think a lot of people slammed it within the first 2 hours of using it. And I'm like, well, You may want to use it for a little bit more to give it a little bit more time before you give your ultimate opinion about it, but that may have been their first impression, which I have to respect as well. And also, let me say this though: if you've been using iMovie for a while now, you've always wanted more power, more flexibility to be able to do some more advanced things, a little bit more professional things. This would be a no-brainer to go ahead and get this new version of Final Cut Pro 10 because it's going to be a nice, awesome upgrade for you, especially at this $300 price point. You don't have to worry about spending $1,000 like you had to do in the past. I think you're going to be doing this upgrade anyway, and I think this is the best way for it because it's going to be an easy transition over coming from iMovie because of the layout and everything and the UI. Plus, you get all these new awesome features, even though it's missing some of the previous features. But you coming from iMovie, you're not going to miss those features because you never used them before, more than likely. So anyway, guys, before we head out of here, this video almost coming to the end. It's going to take one last look at the sponsor of this video, and that is GameFly. GameFly is the largest online video game rental service and offers you a choice from over 7,000 new and classic titles across all consoles and handhelds. With plans starting at $15.95 a month, the GameFly members can rent 1 to 4 games at a time and keep them for as long as they like. There are no late fees, no due dates, and shipping is always free. Once you're done playing the game, send it back and GameFly will send you the next available game on your list. If you really like the game you're playing, simply click Keep It on the GameFly website and the game is yours at a discounted price. GameFly will even mail you the case and manuals free of charge. Soldier Knows Best fans get a 15-day free trial when they go to gamefly.com/soldier. Alright guys, again, thanks for watching this video. Please leave a comment down below and let us know what you think about Final Cut Pro 10. And we'd love to see your personal opinions about it, because just don't always trust my opinion on things. Yes, I'm saying that. I'm interested to see what you guys think about it. That's not proper English, but think about it. Again, thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, I will catch you later. Peace.